Maya Collins said. I heard the lock turn before the scream, and I knew the past had found us. The apartment smelled like rain and detergent, and Liam clung to my hip as Ethan Ward slammed the door. Ethan Ward said, "You hid him from me," and his voice scraped like metal. Sirens threaded the night, distant but marching closer, and my chest hammered a warning. I kept my tone steady, and my hands visible as I said, "You left, and we survived." Liam whispered, "Mom, is he mad at me?" And I pressed his small fingers to my ribs. Ethan's eyes burned with old pride and new fear, and he said, "I will take what is mine." The hall light flickered, making his shadow lunge like a threat. I said, "You will not take him," and the words tasted like iron. He hurled blame and stormed past the stroller, crushing a wheel as if to mark the ground. The door cracked the frame, and the sirens swelled, and I felt the moment snap. I said, "Breathe, baby," and the world narrowed to my son, my heartbeat, and a fight I could no longer avoid. The silence pressed down after the slam, and the sirens passed without stopping, like mercy that missed our floor. Maya Collins said, "We are okay," and my voice was thinner than I wanted. Liam Collins said, he was loud, and his words fluttered like a moth. I turned the deadbolt, then wedged a chair, then checked the cracked window to see the street yawning below. The rain softened to a hiss, and my heart learned its rhythm again. Renee Park called, and I answered on the second ring. Renee Park said, "Do I need to come now?" And I said, "No, just talk to me." The hallway murmured with an elevator ding, and I listened for footsteps that never came. I stared at the bent stroller wheel and saw how easily things break. Ethan Ward said earlier, "I will take what is mine," and the echo gnawed. I said, "I will file first," and the thought felt like a spine forming in my back. I brewed coffee that tasted like metal courage, and the steam fogged the tiny kitchen window. Maya Collins said, "Tomorrow I call a lawyer," and the words steadied my hands. Liam Collins said, "Can we keep the dinosaur near?" And I smiled because rituals matter. Renee Park said, "Document everything, time and words and damage," and I nodded, already photographing the splintered jam. The night settled into the hum of appliances and the whisper of wet tires below. I sorted files and pay stubs and school notes into neat stacks like armor. My phone buzzed with a withheld number, and I let it die. I said, "He left months ago, and he does not get to return by thunder," and the sentence felt like a door that shut. Liam dozed against my side, warm and heavy as truth. I wrote the time on a sticky note and stuck it to my fear. At 2 a.m., the building settled like an old ship, and a text from Ethan Ward arrived with the chill of open water. Ethan Ward said, "You stole years," and the screen felt heavier than glass. I saved the message and mailed it to myself because evidence breathes best in daylight. Maya Collins said, "You chose distance," and the words were typed but spoken in my skull. The rent notice on the fridge glared in patient red, and my overtime hours stacked up in my mind. Renee Park said, "We will fundraise if we must," and the relief made space for shame I did not deserve. I checked Liam's breath and counted to 10 because counting orders chaos. The rain stopped and the city exhaled, and I felt the edge of morning. I said, "I will not be cornered by his noise," and the apartment agreed. I dimmed the lamp and let the dark sit beside us like a guard. Morning rose pale and unbrave, but it still rose, and that was enough. Maya Collins said, "Today we file," and my reflection in the microwave looked ready. Liam Collins said, "Do we need the brave socks?" And I laughed because the brave socks have stars. I packed school snacks and a copy of his birth certificate, and the photo that always makes him grin. Renee Park said, "I found a family lawyer with a spine," and she sent a name and a number and a plan. I slid on my coat and felt the seams hold. Ethan Ward lived like a storm cloud in the forecast, but I was done waiting inside. I said, "We choose the weather now," and the words fit my mouth. Liam tugged my sleeve and said, We can do hard things, and I believed him. The door closed gently, and the day opened like a file. The lawyer's office smelled of paper and old coffee, and the clock on the wall ticked like judgment. Maya Collins said, "I have raised him alone since Ethan Ward left," and the words echoed against her ribs. The attorney Daniel Price said, "Custody cases are battles of evidence, not memory," and his pen scratched a new note. Liam Collins sat in the corner, flipping his dinosaur toy, whispering, "We are okay, right?" Maya nodded, though the truth trembled in her jaw. Daniel leaned back, glasses slipping, and said, "His side will dig for weaknesses." Maya said, "My life is already on display." The office blinds split the morning sun into sharp bars, stripes across her resolve. Daniel said, "Resolve is good, but paper wins cases," and slid her a form. She signed, and the pen stuttered on the dotted line, like her breath catching. In that pause, Maya realized sacrifice was no longer invisible. It would now be weighed, dissected, and questioned. After the meeting, Maya carried Liam down crowded courthouse steps, the city roaring like it knew her secret. Liam Collins said, "Did we win already?" And she kissed his hair and whispered, "Battles take time." A stranger brushed past, and Ethan Ward's cologne clung to her memory like smoke. Maya gripped Liam tighter and said, "We are not running," though her heart argued otherwise. Renee Park called from the curb and waved with her coat sleeve flapping, saying, "I brought snacks and truth." Maya laughed weakly and said, "You always arrive with both." Renee hugged Liam first, then Maya, and said, "He will not break you." Maya said, "He already cracked me once," but Renee shook her head, saying, "Cracks show strength, not weakness." Traffic horns blared as though affirming the defiance. Maya thought, strength is louder when it is shared. She looked at Liam's smile, and hope leaned closer. That night, Maya's kitchen table became a battlefield of receipts, report cards, and pay stubs. Maya Collins said, "This is proof of love," as she lined them up like soldiers. Liam Collins said, "That's a lot of paper," and he stacked his toy dinosaur beside the bills. Renee Park said, "The truth is here, but Ethan Ward will twist it," and her eyes darkened under the kitchen lamp. Maya said, "He already twisted my past. He will not bend my future." Renee said, "Then brace yourself, storms feed on silence." Maya typed a timeline on her laptop, each click a drumbeat of defiance. Liam yawned and said, "Can I stay up?" And Maya said, "No, warriors need sleep." She tucked him in, kissed his forehead, and whispered, "We are fighting for you." Alone, she stared at the papers, every number and word a lifeline. She breathed deep, and the silence thickened into resolve. The next day at work, the office hum was sharp as glass, every phone ring cutting. Maya Collins stacked folders, but whispers coiled behind her back. A co-worker said, "She's drowning in personal mess," and laughter rippled. Maya said softly, "Focus on tasks," and her screen blurred. The manager, Linda Hayes, said, "We need hours covered this weekend," and Maya said, "I cannot, court hearing looms." Linda's lips pressed tight, and she said, "We all have problems." Maya's chest stung, but, she said, "Mine could take my child away." Silence cracked the room for a second. Then keyboards clattered. Maya's hands shook, but her voice steadied as she said, "I will work every hour after." Liam's drawing peeked from her folder, crayon stars across the page, and she tapped it once like prayer. Maya thought, "They cannot measure devotion, but I will not let them measure me as weak." She returned to typing, every keystroke defiance. That evening, Maya sat in Liam's room, walls covered with stars and dinosaurs, the air sweet with crayons and hope. Liam Collins said, "If he comes back, will I have to choose?" And Maya's heart tore. Maya said, "No, I choose for you," and her hand rested on his back. Liam said, "But he was angry," and Maya said, "His anger is his, not yours." Renee Park called and said, "We will stand with you in court," and Maya whispered, "I need that more than I admit." Liam drew a picture of 3 stick figures holding hands and said, "This is us, we win." Maya smiled with tears in her eyes and said, "Yes, we win." The night softened into a lullaby of quiet courage. Maya tucked the drawing into her folder, proof stronger than any receipt. She kissed Liam's forehead and thought, "Love must outlast fear." She whispered, "Sleep safe, my boy," and hope settled in the dark. The courthouse lobby was marble cold, voices echoing like distant thunder. Maya Collins said, "He thrives on spectacle," as Ethan Ward arrived with a lawyer in a suit sharp as knives. Ethan smirked and said, "The truth will favor me." Liam Collins, clutching his dinosaur, pressed close to her hip, whispering, "Why is he smiling?" Maya bent and said, "Because he thinks fear wins." Daniel Price, their attorney, said, "Stay steady, we speak with facts." Ethan's lawyer, Margaret Stone, said, "This case will strip illusions," her voice steady but barbed. Maya's chest lifted, and she said, "Illusions left when he did." Cameras flashed outside, reporters circling like crows, and Maya felt her pulse drum against the floor. Renee Park squeezed her arm and said, "He cannot erase your years." The air thickened, marble steps endless, but Maya whispered to herself, "My love is louder." She held Liam's hand tighter, each step defying the echo of betrayal. That evening, Maya replayed the hearing in her kitchen, anger simmering like the kettle's hiss. Maya Collins said, "He twisted the story," as Renee Park scribbled notes furiously. Renee said, "He painted you as reckless," her jaw tight. Maya's hands shook as she said, "He left us with nothing but now claims sacrifice." Liam Collins peeked from his room and said, "Is he winning?" Maya knelt and said, "Battles feel different than truth." Renee said, "We need more than receipts. We need witnesses." Maya looked at the family photo shelf, gaps speaking louder than faces. She said, "He erased years in a sentence." Renee touched her shoulder, saying, "Then we carve the truth in stone." The kettle clicked off, silence breaking sharp. Maya whispered, "He will not unmake me." The lamp buzzed overhead, and her resolve hardened in the shadows. 2 days later, Maya discovered betrayal closer than Ethan. A message blinked on her screen, proving her co-worker Jenna Ford had shared private details with Ethan's lawyer. Maya Collins said, "She sold my hours and wages," rage breaking through. Jenna Ford said, "It's nothing personal," avoiding her eyes, but her smirk betrayed the lie. Maya's chest flared and she said, "My child is not nothing." Liam Collins said softly, "Who hurt us now?" Maya gathered him close and said, "Not hurt, exposed, but we still stand." Renee Park hissed, "We trusted her," gripping her phone like a weapon. Jenna said, "I needed the money," and her voice cracked with guilt buried under greed. Maya said, "You traded truth for a coin." Silence turned heavy, office lights buzzing. She filed the betrayal away as evidence, but the sting burned deeper than Ethan's words. She whispered, "Even shadows come from those standing near." The betrayal reached her job when Linda Hayes summoned her into the office. Linda Hayes said, "Your attendance reports will be submitted," tone clipped. Maya Collins said, "That data has context, court hearings, emergencies." Linda said, "Context does not matter to records." Maya felt the walls tighten and said, "You are feeding him weapons." Linda's silence confirmed it. Liam's drawing in her folder pressed against her hand like a reminder. Maya said softly, "I will not apologize for fighting for my child." Linda said, "This company has no room for drama." Maya's vision blurred with rage, but she steadied her voice. "This is not drama. It is survival." Silence stretched, the hum of the office louder than truth. Maya stood, spine rigid, and walked out before tears betrayed her steel. She whispered, "I will not let him win by silence." The door closed, heavy as judgment. That night, Maya's apartment felt like a battlefield of whispers. Liam Collins said, "He will take me, won't he?" his voice trembling. Maya Collins knelt, brushing his hair, and said, "He can only take what we give." Renee Park sat beside them and said, "We fortify now, no more leaks." Maya said, Every betrayal strengthens the record, though her heart thudded heavy. Liam said, "Then we are stronger now," and his words made her throat close. Maya whispered, "Yes, stronger," and pressed his drawing to her chest. Renee said, "Tomorrow we meet Daniel again. This war grows." Maya said, "He feeds on lies, but we root in truth." Liam hugged his toy and whispered, "Truth is a shield." Maya exhaled, pressing her forehead to his, and said, "And love is the sword." The night held them, fragile but unbroken, as shadows coiled at the edges of their resolve. The knock at the door was cautious, almost apologetic, and Maya Collins felt her chest tighten as she opened it to find a face she thought she'd buried in the past. Before her stood Claire Collins, 55, female, her estranged mother, lines of regret carved deep. Claire said, "I heard, and I cannot stay away this time." Maya's throat burned as she said, "You left when I needed you most." Liam Collins peeked around his mother's hip, asking, "Who is she?" Maya whispered, "Your grandmother." Claire's eyes filled and she said, "I never stopped watching, only from a distance." Renee Park, stunned, said, "Maya, this changes everything." Maya's voice shook but firmed as she said, "Distance does not earn forgiveness." Claire said, "But maybe it can help win what matters now." Silence stretched, heavy with old wounds and fragile hope, and Maya realized the fight had drawn in ghosts she never wanted to see again. Later, they sat at the kitchen table, papers between them like barricades. Claire Collins said, "I have records, dates, witnesses from when Ethan Ward left." Maya Collins snapped, "Why keep them hidden?" Claire said, "Because shame chained me, but I kept the truth." Renee Park leaned forward, saying, "This could bury his lies." Maya trembled, saying, "You watched from shadows while I drowned." Claire said, "I thought silence would protect you, but I see now it was cowardice." Liam Collins, coloring nearby, whispered, "Grandma, are you good now?" Claire's eyes glistened, and she said, "I will try to be." Maya inhaled deeply, her fury battling the relief that clawed its way in. She said, "If this helps Liam, then we use it, but don't mistake this for healing." Papers rustled like ghosts rising, and the room filled with a storm neither of them wanted but both would need. At Daniel Price's office, Maya slammed the papers down, saying, "My mother kept this all these years." Daniel's eyes widened as he scanned. He said, "These statements could dismantle Ethan Ward's narrative." Maya Collins said, "Do not thank her yet. This is not absolution." Claire Collins said softly, "I only want to help now." Daniel said, "The court will see abandonment differently with this." Renee Park crossed her arms and said, "We use every weapon." Maya whispered, "Even if the weapon is blood." Liam Collins sat quietly, swinging his legs, asking, "Does this mean we win?" Maya knelt and said, "This means we fight harder." Daniel said, "Evidence speaks when hearts cannot," his pen scratching furiously. Maya touched the folder and said, "This is heavy, but I will carry it." Silence hummed, and for the first time, Maya felt both fury and hope sharing the same breath. That evening, tension crackled in Maya's apartment. Claire Collins said, "I failed you once, I cannot fail again." Maya Collins replied, "You failed more than once." Renee Park, voice sharp, said, "She doesn't need another ghost pretending to help." Claire said, "I carry the shame daily, but silence will not protect her anymore." Liam Collins tugged Maya's sleeve, whispering, "She looks sad." Maya sighed, pressing his hand, and said, "Sadness doesn't erase scars." Claire said, "But scars prove survival." Maya snapped, "You don't get to romanticize the wounds you left." Silence roared between them, and Renee's eyes burned with loyalty. Maya looked at Liam's wide eyes and softened, saying, "If your presence helps us win, then stay, but don't expect forgiveness." Claire whispered, "I ask for nothing but the chance to fight beside you." Shadows deepened, and for the first time, the three women sat with both rage and resolve at the same table. The next day, Claire walked with Maya and Liam to school, the city chill biting their cheeks. Liam Collins held both their hands, saying, "Now I have two." Maya Collins whispered, "Two hands don't erase the years." Claire Collins said, "But maybe they steady the steps now." Renee Park trailed behind, watchful, saying, "This balance is fragile." Ethan Ward stood across the street, arms crossed, smirk daring them. Maya pulled Liam close and said, "Ignore him, keep walking." Claire's face blanched, but she held firm, whispering, "He cannot break us now." Ethan shouted, "The truth will gut you," but traffic drowned his venom. Liam whispered, "Mom, I'm brave." And Maya kissed his head, saying, "Yes, braver than all of us." Renee said his noise means fear, and Maya felt strength bloom in her chest. Together, they walked forward, shadows long behind them, each step a declaration that the past no longer owned her. The courthouse echoed like a cathedral of judgment, and Maya Collins felt her breath shallow as Ethan Ward's lawyer presented doctored bank records. Margaret Stone said, "She hides funds, she is unstable." Maya clenched her fists and said, "That is a lie." Daniel Price leaned closer and whispered, "Stay calm, truth comes with patience." Ethan smirked, saying, "She cannot provide stability." Maya whispered, "I have given Liam every heartbeat." Liam Collins sat quietly with Claire Collins in the back row, whispering, "Mom is brave." Claire said, "Yes, braver than the storm." Renee Park scribbled furiously, muttering, "We will dismantle this." Maya swallowed her rage and said, "Every receipt I've kept proves my sacrifice." Margaret sneered, saying, "Sacrifice is not stability." Maya's voice lifted, sharp and steady, "Sacrifice built stability, and no smear will erase it." Silence cut the room, and Maya felt the tide of war turn. After the hearing, Maya collapsed into a bench outside, air raw against her skin. Renee Park said, "He twists truth like wire." Maya said, "But wire can be straightened." Claire Collins whispered, "The records I held are stronger than his lies." Maya's voice cracked, "Why does it still feel like drowning?" Liam Collins climbed onto her lap, pressing his dinosaur into her hand, whispering, "We fight with this too." Maya kissed his hair and said, "Yes, we fight with everything." "Renee," said Daniel, "is filing motions to expose fraud." Maya nodded, her chest still heaving. Claire's hand hovered before resting gently on Maya's shoulder, and she said, "You are not alone anymore." Maya whispered, "That word feels heavy, but maybe it's what I need." Traffic hissed beyond the courthouse steps, life moving as if nothing had cracked. Maya lifted her chin, whispering, "We rise again tomorrow." That night, Maya met with Daniel Price in his office. Daniel said, "Ethan's fabricated documents will collapse when cross-examined." And Maya asked, "What if the court believes him first?" Daniel leaned forward, saying, "We prove history is stronger than fiction." Maya whispered, "History carries scars." Daniel said, "And scars prove survival." Claire Collins sat quietly in the corner, clutching her folder, whispering, "I can testify." Maya glared, saying, "Your silence carved holes." Claire's voice cracked, "Let me stitch what I can." Renee Park said, "We need every ally, even wounded ones." Maya sighed, touching Liam's drawing she carried in her bag. She said, "Then tomorrow we bring everything." Daniel said, "Tomorrow the fight turns." The lamp flickered once, and Maya whispered, "Let the truth flicker brighter." In that silence, strategy and emotion bound together, forming armor made of scars and resolve. The following morning, the courtroom felt colder. Margaret Stone said, "She hides instability beneath a mask." Ethan Ward said, "I deserve to guide my son." Maya Collins stood, her voice cutting, "You deserted your son, and I built his world." Daniel Price submitted evidence of Ethan's debts and arrests, his voice steady. The judge's brow furrowed, flipping through documents. Claire Collins stepped forward unexpectedly and said, "I abandoned my daughter once, but Ethan abandoned both." Silence choked the room. Ethan shouted, "She lies," but the judge raised a hand. Maya's chest burned, whispering, "Finally, the truth." Liam Collins squeezed Renee's hand in the gallery, whispering, "Mom is winning." Renee whispered back, "She already won when she stood here." Ethan's face reddened, and Margaret scrambled to object. The judge's voice cut through. "Order." Maya felt the tide turn as the silence broke in her favor. That evening, back at the apartment, Maya sat in silence as rain struck the window. Liam Collins crawled into her lap, whispering, "You were louder than him." Maya kissed his hair and said, "Truth is always louder." Renee Park poured tea and said, "Tomorrow will not be easier, but today bent the scales." Maya said, "I felt strength I did not know was mine." Claire Collins, sitting apart, whispered, "I saw the daughter I failed become the mother I could not be." Maya's eyes softened, but her tone stayed steel. "This does not erase years, but it may save his future." Liam held up his drawing of 3 figures under a sun and said, "We shine brighter together." Maya smiled through tears, whispering, "Yes, brighter than storms." The lamp glowed warmly, and in that fragile circle, love layered itself over wounds. The storm outside raged, but inside, hope hummed steady. The final day of hearings began under gray skies, thunder whispering on the horizon as if echoing her chest. Maya Collins gripped Liam Collins' hand before court, whispering, "Today decides tomorrow." Liam whispered back, "We win together." Daniel Price straightened his tie and said, "We bring truth, nothing else." Renee Park pressed her hand against Maya's back, saying, "Steel yourself, this is your battlefield." Ethan Ward strode in with a swagger that scraped like nails, Margaret Stone at his side, voice sharp as she said, "We will prove her unfit." Maya swallowed fear and said, "My son is not a trophy." Claire Collins clutched her folder, whispering, "I will speak if it cracks me open." Maya nodded, whispering, "Then let us all bleed truth." The judge's gavel struck, and silence fell like a blade. Maya inhaled, whispering to herself, "I am ready." Inside, Margaret Stone's voice cracked like a whip as she said, "She is unstable, working long hours, leaving the child neglected." Ethan Ward leaned forward, adding, "I offer him stability." Maya Collins rose, trembling but steady, saying, "You offer absence dressed as care." Daniel Price handed over documents saying, "Her work funded Liam's security, his education, his health." The judge's eyes narrowed, scanning the records. Claire Collins stood, her voice shaking but clear. "I left my daughter once, but she never left her son. She fought while others abandoned." Ethan barked, "She is biased," but the judge silenced him. Maya whispered, "The truth is louder than his shouting." Liam whispered to Renee Park, "Mom is strong." Renee whispered back, "Stronger than storms." Silence stretched before the judge spoke, "Continue." Maya's chest swelled with both fear and fire, ready to fight until her voice broke. Cross-examination burned like fire. Daniel Price asked, "Mr. Ward, where were you during your son's hospitalization last year?" Ethan Ward shifted, sweat beading as he muttered, "Unavailable." Daniel pressed, "Unavailable or unwilling?" Ethan snapped, "I was working." Maya Collins whispered, "I was there every night." Margaret Stone objected, but the judge overruled. Maya's eyes locked on Ethan, saying softly, "You left, I carried him alone." Ethan shouted, "You poisoned him against me." Liam whispered, "Mom never did." Claire Collins muttered, "The lies crack when pressed." Renee Park scribbled notes, whispering, "He is unraveling." Daniel said firmly, "The record shows neglect, not partnership." Ethan's face reddened as silence stretched heavy. Maya felt her chest steady, her voice rising within though unspoken. "This is my truth. This is my proof." As the hearing neared its end, Maya Collins stood with a steady voice that shook the air, saying, "Every scar, every late night, every sacrifice has been for my son's safety. I may not be perfect, but I have been present." Ethan Ward scoffed, saying, "Presence does not equal provision." Maya's voice sharpened, "I provided with every paycheck, every sleepless night, every choice that put him first." Liam whispered, She always does. Claire Collins' tears fell as she said softly, "She is the mother I failed to be." The judge raised a hand saying, "Enough." The silence that followed carried weight, heavier than sound. Maya looked at Liam whispering, "I did this for you." Renee Park's voice broke softly, "And you did it for yourself too." The gavel struck once, reverberating like thunder splitting the air. Maya's knees almost buckled, but her spirit stood unshaken. The final exchange cracked the air. Ethan Ward shouted, "She cannot protect him, she is broken." Maya Collins rose, her voice ringing, "Broken does not mean weak. Broken built my strength." The courtroom stilled. "Mwah." Daniel Price said, "The evidence proves neglect on Ethan's part and resilience on Maya's." Margaret Stone tried to speak, but the judge silenced her. Claire Collins whispered, "She has already won." Renee Park squeezed Maya's arm, whispering, "Breathe, it's done." Liam Collins whispered, "Mom, are we safe now?" Maya knelt to him, whispering, "We are safer than ever." The judge leaned forward, voice deliberate, "This court will deliver its decision tomorrow." Silence dropped, heavy but charged with hope. Maya's chest lifted, tears hot, whispering, "We made it here." The storm outside broke with rain, but within her, light cracked through. The courtroom was hushed as the judge lifted the final papers, his voice heavy with certainty. The judge said, "This court awards full custody to Maya Collins." The words rang like church bells in Maya's chest. Ethan Ward's face fell into a mask of fury, but he stayed silent under the gavel's authority. Margaret Stone gathered her papers quickly, lips pressed thin. Maya gripped Daniel Price's hand and whispered, "We did it." Daniel said, "You did it, Maya." Renee Park wiped her eyes, whispering, "He cannot touch you now." Claire Collins covered her mouth, tears spilling, whispering, "Redemption is hers, not mine." Liam Collins jumped from his seat, racing to Maya's arms, whispering, "We're safe?" Maya hugged him fiercely, whispering, "Safe, always." The silence broke into whispers, but for Maya, the sound was nothing compared to the beat of her son's heartbeat against her chest. Outside the courthouse, the air smelled of wet pavement as the rain had passed, leaving the world scrubbed clean. Maya Collins said, "We step into freedom now," her voice trembling with release. Liam Collins squeezed her hand and said, "Freedom feels like sunshine." Renee Park grinned, saying, "Even in gray skies." Claire Collins walked a few steps behind, whispering, "I never thought I'd witness her victory." Daniel Price shook Maya's hand, saying, "Go live, not just survive." Maya nodded, whispering, "We will." Ethan Ward lingered across the street, his figure shrinking into the crowd, powerless now. Maya felt her chest loosen, saying, "His shadow will not stretch here anymore." Liam lifted his toy dinosaur to the sky, whispering, "We win." Renee laughed softly, whispering, "Yes, you both did." Together, they stepped forward into a day that finally felt like it belonged to them. That evening, Maya sat at her kitchen table, the folder of documents closed for the first time in months. Maya Collins whispered, "It is finished," her voice trembling with relief. Renee Park poured wine, saying, "To victory and scars." Maya raised her glass, whispering, "To scars that tell survival." Claire Collins looked down, whispering, "To daughters who surpass their mothers." Maya met her eyes, saying, "We are not healed, but we are here." Liam Collins padded in wearing pajamas, asking, "Is this a celebration?" Maya laughed softly, saying, "Yes, the best kind." Liam raised his juice glass, whispering, "To us." Renee clinked glasses gently, whispering, "To you two most of all." The lamplight glowed, filling the room with warmth Maya hadn't felt in years. She leaned back, whispering, "I have never breathed this freely." The papers sat untouched, powerless, as love became the centerpiece. Later that night, Maya tucked Liam Collins into bed. He whispered, "You'll never let him take me." Maya kissed his forehead, whispering, "Never, not while I breathe." Liam clutched his dinosaur, whispering, "Then I'm safe forever." Claire Collins stood in the doorway whispering, "He will grow, knowing your strength." Maya replied softly, "He will grow knowing love." Renee Park whispered from the hall, "And knowing he was worth every fight." Maya smiled through tears whispering, "Yes, every fight." Liam's eyes closed, his breathing steady, the room filled with peace. Maya sat at the edge of his bed, hand on his small chest, whispering, "This is the victory, not the papers." The lamp's soft glow wrapped them like a blanket, and for the first time, fear did not sit in the room with them. Maya exhaled slowly, whispering, "We are whole tonight." The next morning, sunlight streamed through the apartment window, brighter than it had in months. Maya Collins stood in the kitchen, staring out, whispering, "This is what freedom looks like." Liam Collins padded in, yawning, saying, "Are we stronger now?" Maya knelt, smiling, whispering, "Yes, stronger now and always." Renee Park entered with coffee, whispering, "To futures built in light." Claire Collins set breakfast on the table, whispering, "To roads that can be mended." Maya touched the door to Liam's room, whispering, "We will be okay." Liam tugged her sleeve, whispering, "We never stop fighting, right?" Maya kissed his hair, whispering, "Never stop." The apartment was filled with warmth, laughter, and the smell of pancakes. For the first time, the silence was not heavy. It was safe. Maya smiled, whispering, "We have won more than custody. We have won ourselves."